Yes, I can hear you fine, and I can see your screen as well. Yeah, we can go
Okay.
ahead.
So, hello everyone. Good morning, and I will say at the end of the session, good night, because you guys are from the different region as well. So, in the continuous series of the patch functions, today we are going to talk about the patch. How to Now we are going to cover the Canvas app side, because in our the previous session we have already discussed about the SharePoint list. So let's start from the we have already discussed, as a just for the preview side, what we have discussed earlier. We have talked about the types in the SharePoint list, and today we are going to talk about the patch function itself. As we have already discussed about what is patch. It's basically, in a short words, to create and to update the data. It's efficient in the performance, and as well as it's we can patch more data just one form. Okay, so we can do the bulk operation as well in the patch itself. So here in front of you, you can see here, to use the patch function inside the Canvas app, we are going to use this type of syntax itself. Okay. The first syntax shows the patch function itself, and then the list. It can be any data source. It's not just about the list itself. Okay. So here, this will be the patch function, and then we are going to use here the data source itself. It can be list and anything else. Okay. But in our case, we are gonna perform about the we are gonna use the list in our live demo. So here the default is just to create a record. It shows that I'm gonna perform the creation, okay, over this data source. So if we talk about the existing, if we want to update something inside the data source, then what we will do, the syntax somehow it will remain as it, okay, the patch and then the data source, and then here we can use the first our filter, okay, to show up that inside this record, on the base of this ID, we want to update this record. So, and if we talk about before among of these two, we can use any of them. So the both will work like this. So the lookup we can use, for to update the data, we can use a lookup function to look for the specific record and to update it. So here, let's talk about how we can patch the text field in our Canvas app. So I think it's better to show you from the practical side as well. So for now, I will go through the slides. Okay. So as we have already talked about how we can patch the single line of text from the Canvas apps to the SharePoint list, we can here patch function, and then this one is the data source. And if we are intended to create the record, then we will use the default. Otherwise, we can use the lookup. You are not going to use both of them at once. So after that, you have to mention, okay, you have to mention what type of column. This first column is representing the same syntax. Okay, this is the same, the column name inside the SharePoint itself. So this is the SharePoint name, and this one is your mention your text, whatever the data is in the double quote. Either if you are fetching the data from the text field, then you are going to say this is the SharePoint column, okay, and then colon, and then to represent what is the text field Canvas app, then .txt to fetch its text values. So I will show you how to do this in the practical side. So if we look toward the Canvas app itself, so for now, we have already talked about, we have a list, okay, and we can see here, this is the hidden field. This one is this field is the systematic field, okay. This one is for the internal use. So, and this one is the custom field that we have created in our list. as we have already talked about in our previous session. So this title shows as the text field, okay? And how we are gonna achieve this one, how we are gonna insert the data inside this title column, either in the name column, the both belongs to the same text field. So here we can see here, I created a one how, as you have already learned about in the previous sessions, okay, that how to add the text field and the label itself. Label is just to show what type of data we are going to use. I am not using here label because we are focusing on the, the patch functions. So just click on the insert button and then use the text label, either the text field itself in the input, okay, the text input. I choose the text input and then I renamed it. If you go to the tree, the hierarchy, you will find out, if you click over it, you will see this one is the txt reg. I renamed it just for the standardized purpose, okay, to make it standard. So in the same way, I have created all the columns, okay, inside the, the Canvas app, because we want to map them from the Canvas app to the SharePoint list itself. So I have created in the same order that I have added in the SharePoint itself. So this column is the title and the name, and this is the same thing. Okay, you can see here the text reg are the title itself, and then this one is shows that name. Okay, since these two fields belong to the text input, so that's why I'm giving the prefix as a txt, just for the better. Okay, so when anyone else who is gonna walk over this, he knows what type of, why we are using the naming convention, just to make it throughout the application in the standard, okay, way. So the third column that we are using in the list is a choice. Okay, the options that we usually call our choice itself, you can see here. While in the Canvas app, we are using the drop down for this choice. And even we can use the combo box itself, but it's better to use the drop down because you're going to show the data. And see here, I am using the DD just to show it. Is this one is that drop down for the department itself. And this department, okay, is the same thing here that we are using. You can choose, you can rename it as per your need, okay, but it's better to follow the standard itself. So in the same manner, I have created all the columns. Okay, so we have talked about the text input field, the drop down field, and the next one is the combo box, because we are going to use, okay, the multiple options here. As you can see here in the SharePoint list, we are using the floor. This is the floor field. This is the same, the option set field, the choices field. But here I have mentioned to choose, the drop down, or maybe it can be the radio as well. But since I want to for the multiple options, so I better to choose as a drop down. And then I'm allowing it as to select the multiple items. Okay. So if we talk about in the canvas, what I did, I just simply came here and then look for here, either for the combo or directly, combo box inside under the input section. So I choose a combo, and here I have to mention what type, allow multiple selection. I enable this one. And also, if while searching the data inside the Canvas app in the field, if we want to allow the user to search the option as well, then we can enable this one. So in the next part that we are going to talk about is, in our list, it's all about the date and time. As you can see here, it shows the date and the time itself, and then the date field. The both are the same field, but the difference is between we just enable the time inside this column. That's it. But the data type, okay, for these two fields are the same, the date and time. Here I just said include time. Even I can say it user friendly format. If we enable it, it will show us as in English, the word like Sunday, Monday, something. So it's more, readable to the human. So here you can see in the same manner, I have used the date and time field. As you can see here, the drop down. So look here. So I said this one is the vocation start date and time. Okay. And then this column is for the date of birth. Look for here. Okay. So we had talked about the text, the drop down field, the combo box, and the datetime fields, and even along with the time itself. So for the hours, seconds, and minutes, you can mention here. You can see here, this one is for the minutes, hours, and seconds. And even you can mention what type of, the data you want to use here. You have to initialize. You have to initialize here the properties, the values of the data. See here, I can mention it. For example, the hours can be, the seconds can be 1 second, 2 second, 3 second. In the same manner, the hours can be 24-hour format, and it can be in the 12 format. Okay. In the same way, for the hours, it can be, we all know about the 24 hours, but for the minutes, it can be the 60 minutes here. So it will continues like this, 5, 6, 7 till 60. Okay, so now if we talk about this one represents the nodes itself, but this one is the same, but this is the same text field, but with the multi-line. Okay, so you can use it for the to store the nodes value like the same manner here. Okay, and in the same way we have created the most important one, the complex one is we are going to talk about the person field. And that how I'm using this one for the person field, I'm using the same combo box, and I renamed it as a manager just to keep the thing simple and more, to readable. Like this is the same manager. Okay. So how we are, fetching the data and where from I am fetching the data. For this record, of course, I don't need to fetch the data because I will ask the user to enter the data inside the title and the name on the runtime on the fly. Okay, so that's why I'm not fetching, I'm not using the value of this field. Okay, it's this data is not coming from somewhere, while this one, for the item what to show here, I am fetching all the details from where I'm fetching the details from this, choice field from the SharePoint list. If we talk about here, you can see here, this column belongs to customer, list, and there are these options, the choices. In the same manner, if I want to fetch, I want to show the data from the list inside this field, in this drop down, then what I can do, I can say choices. I want to show the choices from where? From the customer, list. It can be from the data source. And then what type of column is, it can be there can be a multiple choice field. For example, in the list, the department and the floor both are the choices. So I need to mention here which field. I said the department one. So it's fetching the data from the SharePoint. Okay, so it will show you the same options that is coming from the SharePoint itself. So moving forward, we were talking about the user itself. In the same manner, we can, user can be in our SharePoint list. Okay, we enter the data, and from where these users are coming, the user is coming from the, it can be from the any of your custom data source, and it can be from your office itself. So for this, for this practical demonstration, I'm using the office itself, since we have the office, the subscription from through which I'm creating this list. This, I'm creating the list and the document library and all the other stuff using the SharePoint and the Canvas app. So I do have a Office 365 subscription. So these user, okay, these user, how I can show you, let me show you the different user. If you go to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, okay, do you have a question, guy? Okay, someone. Okay, so if you go to the admin center and if you go to the user, you can see how many users are there. There are 3 users, and there can be a guest user, the deleted user, and there can be any other type of user. For example, you can create a new section here that a user who has this XYZ license, a user who is inactive, a user who is, this and that. So you can add the filter here while fetching the data. So for this one, for this combo box, from where I'm getting the data, I'm not getting the data from the list itself, because the list person, this field, this column itself fetching the detail from the user itself, from the Office 365 data. So for this purpose, I have used here, I have mentioned, how to fetch the detail. To fetch the detail, first of all, you need to create the Canvas app, okay? And in that Canvas app, you need to go to the data sources. Since we are gonna work with the SharePoint list, so you have to add, click here, add data, and you need to search for the SharePoint itself. Just click on it, and it will be added here as a data, as a connector, as a data source. So since we are talking about the users from the office, so in the same manner, we can go here and we can search for the office, okay? And then we can enter. We have already choose this one. So it will be added here. So now you can use this function inside your combo box, okay? So I said from this data source, okay, search user, okay, on the base of what? Search term means on the base of this field. Which field? This CB, that means combo box manager dot search text. Whatever the user type inside this search as a text inside this combo box, okay, search inside, search inside this, inside this source. So how it will work, I will show you, okay? If when I will run this app, see here, it's asking me type. I can test, I can type here. For example, I can type here as, for example, member. Okay, so it will only show me the member one. Look here. Okay, so then I can select here. So it's saying whatever the user will type inside the text box, it will select the member, it will search the user and it will be selected here. In the same way, okay, but this time, since we are going to talk about in the list, and this person can be a group of people, okay, a multiple people like this. Okay, you can add a multiple user inside this one column, and you can use as a group itself. So for this column, I'm using as a grouping. I means there is a group, and inside that group there can be a multiple user. And how you can create the groups? So you can choose here. So in the same manner, you need to go to the admin center, okay, in the Office 365 admin center at the Microsoft, because the Office they renamed it to the Microsoft itself. So you need to go to the Teams and then click on the active, or either unclick here, click here, create the group, add this one, okay? I just create this soft system patch, either this one, and I just create this one. It will ask you multiple steps. Give the name, okay, make who will be the user, and add the member inside this. You can see here there can be a member itself. So this is the 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 group name, and the all the members is added inside this group. And then once you create this group, you will be able to use them to show to search them inside this field. Okay, as you can see here, solve system patch, I created this group, so it is showing me. But how to achieve this data? In the same manner, since the previous one was related to the user, so that's why you use the Office 365 user. And if you are talking about the groups, then you can use this one. And either you can also use the groups from the Office 365 as well. So I clicked on it and I choose the Office 365 groups like this one. And this connector will be added. Once it's connected, now the Canvas app now about this connector. And here you can say Office 365 groups, please show me all the groups that is owned by this logged in user. Even you can look for all the groups, okay, regardless of the ownership of this one. Okay, so since with this user, with the same user source systems I have created, I am using, this guy is using the Canvas app. I have created a group, and and that's why it's showing me, this group inside this. So we have talked about how from where the data is coming inside this combo box, and okay, and who can do this and how to create them. So like moving forward, we know about this is the credit score, and this field is basically is a number field. As you can see here, the number. In the same manner, I have created a field like the text field, but here I have defined the properties as a number, the format like, this is the text input, but this time I just changed it from the text to the number. And even I can, even I can add here what type, the maximum length it can receive. Okay. So we have talked about the number, okay, and this one you can see here, the naming convention of this field is basically, if you click here, it will mention num credit score. I'm just renaming it, just for I just rename as a prefix as a num to show it this the type of the data fields, and what is the data type field name is credit score, like the same one. In the same manner, this field is a to option field. Okay, I have created this one. You can see here, this is a two option, and how we can achieve this one the same way. Okay, from the radio, and it can be checkbox. Okay, so for now I'm using the checkbox, and I have mentioned it, the property of this one. What will be the default value? Okay, let me click here. Showing me the default value. I will show you why we are using this variable. For now, just focus on these fields and their type and from where we are getting the data and how we are renaming these fields and how we are gonna push the data inside the list from the Canvas app. So this field, this field we are using for the LinkedIn for this field, and this field is basically a hyperlink field. And how we are doing this, we are using the same like this. If we click here, it will show you the type of the field. This one is the text field, but this one I'm using for the hyperlink. How we are going to achieve this one? This will be, of course, a text number. Okay. And look here, we are using the value of this field. This one will be, the data we will insert, we will ask the user to insert the data inside this field. And this field is basically just to show the money field. We can create, in the SharePoint list, the revenue field is basically the data type of this field is a currency. Okay. And what I did, I just created a same text field, but I just renamed it to, I just changed the number to the format, I just changed the format to the numbers. And in the same manner, to store, as you can see here, there are a location field. This field is basically related to the location. Okay, so the location type field is not supported in the canvas function. I will show you. Okay, so when you create this one, it will auto generate all the other column on the base of your selection inside this setting. Okay, so this one is not supported, so we are not going to talk about this field here. So moving forward, we can see here the image. Okay, the type of this field is basically image. We can look here. I'm using this one. Okay, a media profile, just to show the profile and upload button. Okay, here you can drop, drag and drop, and even you can click on it and it will ask you to select a file. I'm using this one, the profiler button, just to store the data, just to patch the image field from the Canvas app to the SharePoint list. Moving forward, we can see here we have a lookup field, a branch, but the data of this branch is coming from another list okay. So this column is referencing, you can see here, we are using the lookup field, and the data for this field is coming from another list. Okay, and what we are showing here, the title of this field. Even I can show the ID, and it will show the ID of this field, of this record here. To achieve this one, what we have done, we created in the same manner a brand, a combo box. I am giving it like the CB mean combo box, the TXT mean the text value for the branch. You can see here, and here from where we are fetching the data in the same way. I said it is, this one is, like you can consider it as a choices, and even you can look for that as a lookup. But since the data is coming from the list, so I'm using the choice itself. Okay, means show me all the record from this list for which column, for branch column. So it will fetches all the data from this list, what is stored inside this column. So in our manner, I can see only these two one, okay, but not from the another list. It should be from the another list. So what I need to do, you guys, what you can do here, you can go to the data source and you can click here, the SharePoint, but this time in the SharePoint, you will select the other list from where this data is coming. This branch data is coming. For now, I'm just fetching all the record that is stored here, like Seattle and the New York. Okay, but the best practice is always to have another list, another connector, the same connector, but with that data, with another data source. So for this one we are using here for the terms. This field is basically in the SharePoint list is a managed data. Okay, the type of this field is manage metadata, and how you can, if you choose this one, it will ask you to select. Remember this one and this one is out of the box. There is an area we call is as a taxonomy. We all know about that. We in the SharePoint we have a top SharePoint site, and inside we have a collection, and in that collection we have a SharePoint site and then subsite, and inside each of them, in the collection, either in the subsite or site, we can create a list and the data, the document library and the web pages and web parts itself. Okay, so how I create, because these two, the people and the search one, okay, this one is basically a term set and this one is terms. Okay, and how we can create, this one is basically a groups. Okay, I can show you here. This one is a group and this one is the custom group, depend on the site, and this one is only visible to the specific site. Okay, let's say just for now, just consider it, you just created a column and just choose the type as metadata, manage metadata, and from where you will fetch the source for this data. How you can create it, you have to go to the admin center from the Office 365, which we call as a Microsoft. Once you go there, you will click here on the SharePoint side. Okay, and once you are inside this SharePoint site, you need to go to the content services and you need to click on the term stores. Okay, what is basically the managed data, metadata? Metadata is basically to store the information related to the data itself. Okay, all the configuration, all the settings. But if we talk about the term shows the some sort of the settings and the contracts and all the other obligation that we follow. So for example, here categories. Okay, we can say here the taxonomy. Under the taxonomy, we call this one as in our local language like the Darjabandi. Okay, so these two groups will be automatically created. Okay, and this is out of the box. It will come automatically once you subscribe with the share inside the SharePoint. If you want to create your this one, you won't be visible because this one you don't have permission. Okay, and this one is being used for the internal purpose, and this one it will come automatically out of the box. You can interact with them, you can choose. You can see here when I clicked on the list and I select, it will show me from where you want to search this one. Okay, But if I want to create a new one, a site related, okay, then you can create your own. This one is basically a global one, these two, okay. You can see them inside a different site, one, even from the different collections. But if you want to keep the terms just related to the site, okay, or then what you can do, I will show you. While coming from here, you will always create a terms on the base of the, or, for the global one. So under the taxonomy, we have a terms group, okay? And under the terms group, we can have a term set. And then under the term set, we can have a terms, okay? How we can achieve this one. For example, inside this list, from where this term group is coming. So I am not able to see here inside the SharePoint Admin Center from where it's coming. For this one, you have to go to the SharePoint itself. Okay, let me show you how. Let me click here. Let's go here in the SharePoint itself. And then, okay, then you need to choose for which site you want to create them, the terms, the management metadata that you want to share, you want to select inside the management metadata. So you will click on the my sites and choose whatever you want, okay. For example, we have created this one. You will select over it and you will go to the gear icon, click on the settings. So I'm gonna create a terms just that will be visible just for this site. Okay. I need to click on the site information. So you will click on the view all site setting. Once here, you need to look for the term store management under the site administration. Click here. Okay. So in the same manner, click on the content services and under the term store, you will see here, this one is the global term group. And inside a global term group, you can have a terms, set. And inside each term set, you can have a different type of terms. In the same manner, this one is global and it will be visible for all the different sites. But for the, specific to this site, you can create a new one. How? You can click on the add term group. Once clicked here, it will ask you for the naming. You need to name it and then press the enter. Okay. And here I just create the patch term group, and inside that group I create the term set and then the terms. Okay. But remember, you need to provide the permission itself for this term set. Okay. So here you can see how you can give, give the permission for this term set. Who can use this one? You can click over it and then you can set the owner, the stakeholder itself. You just need to search the name. Once clicked over it, and this user will be added here. Okay. So now the user we selected have access to these terms. In the same manner, once it's created, you will be able to see the terms just for this site, as we have already talked about this solve system patch. And inside this site, we have a list. Of course, if we have access to the parent, then we can have access to the child itself. And this child can be list a document library. So we have talked about how from where it is coming. Okay. So you can mention either we need to show just terms only or the term plus parent itself. Even you can choose the multiple values, the term 1 and term 2. If we select the term 1, it will show the parent path as well. So we have talked about the terms, okay, and why we need to use these terms. I like inside the management data. Okay. So we have talked about all the data types. Now we are going to, patch them one by one. So as we have already talked about from where this, this data is coming from for this lookup field in, for this lookup field that we have created inside the SharePoint list, we are using the same choices. And for these terms, for this management data field, we are doing the same thing. Okay. So what we will do, we will simply, insert a one button. Like once you click here, it will be added here and you will drop, drag and drop here, and you can rename it. like this one. In the hierarchy, I'm giving the name is btn patch, mean this one button as a prefix for the patching. And now we are going to patch the data from these fields to inside that, the SharePoint list. Okay, so let's talk about the patch. Once clicked on the patch, you need to look for the on click of the patch button. Okay, on select of the patch button, what you are going to perform. I said, first of all, I will use the error handling. You can even neglect this one, but it says whatever the operation you are going to do, if somewhere it throws something, happen, something went wrong, then capture that one and notify us. And what will be the notification? Just show me the message of the error, and the type of this error will be error, and show me this error just for the 2 seconds, and then vanish this one, remove this error from the header. Okay, because we don't want to show the error on the runtime here. So we will capture all the errors. Okay, and here just forget this one, just forget all of them. Okay, it's a complex one, just consider one. We have a title field like here. Okay, because this field is out of the box, so we are going to push the data from the canvas app, this field, from this field, which is the title field. Okay, inside this column, inside the list. Okay, so how we are going to achieve this one? You can see here, it's a simple. Are you going to create or run an update? For now, we are going to create. So we will use this one, the patch syntax, the data source name, and the action that we are going to take. Like the same manner here, the patch, the data type, the data source, we can see here, this one is the data source. Okay, and the operation, we are going to perform the operation, the creation. So we will use the default on which data source, for this one. Okay, the same we have talked about. Okay, so now what is the next column? The first data that we want to dump inside a list is title, which is the text field. So what we are going to do, this is the column, the column name. Look here, this is the same column name. We will mention the SharePoint column name here. Okay, and then we said fetch the data from this text in, text input field. Okay, as you can see here, where is this field? Look here, this one, this column, this one column. From this field, whatever the user will enter, just take the text field and enter inside this column. Okay, so now we have successfully patched the text field, the title field, from the Canvas app to the, the in the SharePoint list. So you can see here, either you can hard coded the text value, or you can ask fetch the data from the user input field. Okay, so here we have talked about this field, and this is the text reg, as you can see here, this one. Okay, in the same manner, the next field is a name field. In the same manner, we are saying, okay, here we have different type of name field. So the system, whenever you will type the name, it will suggest you which name field. So if there are duplicate name field, it will say you, it will show you a preview which field. So when I type the NAM, it says just a name field, or from this source field. I said yes, from this data source, which is basically this one, the list itself. So this is the name of the SharePoint field, list field. Why it's different? Because there are two duplicate fields. So that's why I want to mention it. Use the, use the field from this data source where the name is this one. Okay, and patch in the same manner, fetch the data, whatever the user enter inside the text field, the type of the field itself, okay, the text value inside that input field. Now we have talked about how to patch the text fields. It's a simple, as you can see here, we have talked about, you can hard coded dimension, either you can fetch the data from the text field itself. So now let's talk about the choice, okay, the choice column, how to patch that choice column. In the same manner, these things will be remain as it is throughout the the implementation. Either you are gonna, the data source will be same, either you are gonna insert or you are gonna update the data. So here we are gonna talk about this one. This thing will be changed, for each of the data column. In the next column is a choice field, which is basically a department, a choice one. Okay. So if I will show you here, we can say here, this is the department field, a field name, which is inside the SharePoint list. In patch the data, what is inside the drop down, which field, the drop down field, which have renamed as a department, and whatever the user has selected, fetch that data and patch this, and map this field with this SharePoint list. In the same manner, we are doing, this one is a straightforward. For the choice field, it's a simple. You can, whatever what you can do is, you can choose as a choice the name of the field. You can give the ID and you can, separately mention as a value. Either you can simply from the combo box, okay, you can set as dot selected. Whatever will be selected inside this column, see here, this one is a drop down, okay. Either I can mention one by one, like the ID and its value. If we are talking about, from the gallery, and if we are using the combo box or the drop down or the radio button, then what you can do, you can use the name of the combo box, either the drop down or the radio, then dot selected. Whatever the is, the user is selected, it will be selected, okay. And now if it is the radio button, then you have to use the value itself. So for now, if I select this one, so you can see here, whatever inside the drop down that the user has selected, just map the value of this field to the department field, which is basically a SharePoint. And in the same manner, we can see here, for the multi, choice column, how we can achieve this. What you can do this, you can create a table or an array of list. How to do this? You can simply, since this field and this field are the same type, a drop down, okay, for the combo box. This one is a drop down and this one is a combo box, okay. So here I have mentioned allow the user for the multiple selection, because I have set this field as a multi, as a multiple selection here. So that's why I'm saying allow multiple selection. So in the same manner, we have patch this, the floor field itself. So this one is pretty simple, okay. And for the date time, you can do the same stuff, This is the Canvas app field name, okay. You can see here, I can show you here. Okay, see here, this one is, okay. And whatever the selected date, just patch this value inside this, field, which is basically a SharePoint field name, like this one. Same, the date of birth is simple for this one, date and the datum value. Now let's talk about, guys, can you hear me and can you see my screen? Which screen you can see here right now? Is that
Yeah, I
Canvas
can
app
see
or
just a
something?
patch. Yeah, just a canvas app.
Okay, it's a canvas app. Okay. So for the notes, which is basically multi-line text, it's the same. Okay, just a SharePoint list field name and the canvas apps text field, the multi-line field name. Complex, okay, if we talk here, you can see here for the datetime, it's simple. Either you can hard coded the value, or you can use the date and the time as a separate part using this concatenation, or you can ask the user, as a to select from the date selector that we have already discussed here. See here. Look, if I click here, the selector, whatever I will select here, it will mention, this value is selected. How? Because we are using this one, like this one selected. Okay. We have talked about the date and time, and even we can, concatenate the time and its value either from the drop down for the hours and for the minutes, because we have used the drop down here, like this one. Okay, drop down for the seconds, drop down for the hours, drop down for the minutes, drop down for the seconds, like this way. You can use time plus like this way for the second and for the minutes. Okay, let's move to the date time. So date we have already talked about along the time. We can directly mention either we can use the function now function. It will pick the current date time. So this one is basically is like the date picker that I have already shown you. So moving forward, we have already talked about the multi-line. It's simple, the same way that we have talked about here. But the minor difference that we need to talk about is for the multi-line that you can end the line itself. For example, this multi-lines, it will be written like this multi-line, and then it will be, this value will be written in the next row, okay, in the next row. Because this one shows the enter, it means a space, a line break, okay, not just space, a line break. So that's the main difference between the text and the multi-line. Either you can fetch the data from the text field. Moving forward, this one is the complex field, the percent field that we have already talked about inside the SharePoint list. You can see here the type of this manager is a person or the group one. So how we are gonna patch this field from the Canvas app is basically there is a special syntax that you need to keep in your memory. While this one, if you have if you have configured your text box, your combo box like this one that I'm going to show you. For example, you inserted the text box, and inside this one, for example, this one we have already talked about. The data is coming from this connector, and we are searching the user. We are selecting the user on the base of text field, whatever we talk, and we want them to show only. For example, if I type inside the Zishan, okay, it will search all the Zishan, and if there are more than 10 Zishan, it will show me just top 10 records. Okay. So here we were talking about the member, and we can talk about, we can see here the name of this field is basically here, combo box underscore manager. The manager shows this one because we are going to map with this one. So to patch this one, you have to keep things in your mind. How to achieve this one? Click on this combo box, click on the edit, and then choose either the single, double, or the person. Since we are going to use this one, so you need to choose the person. And on the what do you want to, what will be the primary text field of this whole data? I'm going to show the name, and then the text secondary text field will be the email. Okay, and after that, I want to search the user inside this combo box on the base of this field. Means I'm going to type the display name and it will show me the data. So you can see here, once we have configure this field, setting, then what you can do, you can simply use this one. Okay, the name of the field, which is basically in our manner, in our case is manager. Okay, manager, and this will be our combo box field, which is basically here is a CB manager, and then dot selected. Okay, so whatever we select inside this column, we will, we will select this one. So this value is selected. Okay. So either you can patch just simply like this, or what you can do, you need to mention the, the person field name, and then open this one. For example, this syntax. So there are how to find from where I am, how someone can know how many columns are there for this, person field. How to find this one? You can simply find this one. If you click here on the person, from the person itself here, then you can see how many columns are available. See here, it has city, department name, display name, ID, title, mail, and the surname and all the other stuff, the phone number itself. So you can use this as it is the column name inside this syntax. Okay, see here, the claims. For this claim, of course, from where the claim we are getting, we are not getting inside this, from this field. Neither from this SharePoint list. We are fetching the user, and of course, from where we are fetching the user, we will get the claim from there as well. So we are fetching the claims from the office itself. So how to connect this person field with the office data source with this one, because we are showing the data from this one. So you need to type the OData type, and then as it is the connector that we are using for the user. Okay, and then the claim, this one will be hard coded, and after that you can concatenate. Either you can use the and sign, either you can type here as a concat, use the small braces, and then type this one. And here I am saying, the claims. How? I said fetch the data from this CB manager, which is basically a combo box manager field, whatever the user has selected, and this field value. Okay, so it will select the claims. Okay, and then the department name. So these 6 field is, you have to mention these 6 field. Either they are mandatory or not. Okay, but how many fields are mandatory? The claim is mandatory one. You have to provide the value. Department you can ignore, you can just say empty. For the display name, this one is, this one is mandatory. You have to mention. I said from the combo box manager, the selected value just show the display name. For the email, just map the selected value mail to this email field, okay, of this one. And the job title, you can keep it as it is, okay, and the picture, because email, display name, and the claim, these are the mandatory one. For the other one, you can ignore them. You can just paste as an empty one. So this is the syntax to map the person field, which is basically a complex one, from the canvas to the SharePoint list. As you can see here, we can map like this one. We can also map like this one. You can choose as per your need. So now we have mapped this field, and now we are gonna talk about, for example, what if you have selected here? What if someone has selected is here? I want to mention not just one manager. If this customer has multiple manager, so how you will achieve this one? Of course, you are gonna say this one, hey, allow multiple selection. And of course, if you allow here, you have to allow this combo box from here as well, like allow multiple selection. Okay, and once done this one, for example, if a user has selected multiple manager inside this one, then this selected will not work. Okay, then you will not use as a selected. This time it will be called as a selected items. Okay, because you have enabled it for the multiple users. So item means there are many. And if you are going to use this syntax, then how you are going to achieve this one? Either you can create a table, okay, for example, a table. Inside this table, you are saying this is the first person data, okay, and then I want to say there is another person. Okay, so this way now this is working as a multiple selection. Okay, you can save them. You can achieve this one either this way, or what you can do, you can simply just convert this thing into the array. Okay, like this one. So you can pass multiple values like a person, a multiple selections. Okay, so now moving forward, we have talked about the person. Now we are going to talk about, see here, like this one. See here, if you are going to talk about the multiple selection, then this time you are not going to talk about, you are not going to select just selected. You have to select for the selected items, either this way, or you can do this like this way. Okay, inside the table or the array. So moving forward, we have now, if we are talk about the group itself, then of course the group is something different. So you need to select, you need to have a connector for the Office 365 group. And you hear that the data I'm coming, getting from the groups. I said, as I have already talked about, show me all the listed on groups that this user own. So it will show me those user here. And this time I'm showing here the name of the group and the email itself. You can see here the display name, okay? And how we are getting this one, we are getting, just click on over it and go to the edit. You will see here the display name and the email itself, and search the user on the base of name. Show me these two fields. You can see here, show me the name and the email and search the user on the base of text field. Okay, so moving forward, we have already talked about this is simple field, which is basically a number field. Okay, and this one is, we have already talked about the drop down field and how we are patching them. We have talked about the person field. We have talked about how to patch the multiple users, how to patch the groups. Okay, and if you want to patch a current user, for example, who is going to take an action, then you can use the function, which is basically a user function. And if you are going to talk about the group, then you have to choose this one as an expanded group. Okay, just for the group, it will, this user will be, this text will be like this one group. Okay, and all the other stuff will remain same. All the syntax will remain same. Okay, so now moving forward, we have talked about person and group and how to multiple match for the users. And now then moving forward, we are going to talk about the numbers. Of course, we are using the text field, which is basically a, clicking here, it will ask you to mention num field. Okay, this one. This is basically a text field, and we have changed the format of this field to the numbers. And how we are patching it, we are patching it, as per this slide. You can see here, either you can, yeah, this is the column name inside the SharePoint list, and this one is basically hard-coded values. You can use this one, and if the data is coming from the text field, then you can convert this text value into the numbers. And if the value is coming from the drop down, then you have to choose like this: drop down name, then selected dot value, whatever the value inside this one. And if it is coming from the slider, like for example, how would you rate yourself? So sometimes you you move the slider from 0 to 10. So this slider dot value, of course, this field will remain same. And in our case, this field is called credit score. It can be here credit score, because this field, which is basically a credit score, is we are going to patch it from inside the function, like here. we are using the text field and we are converting the value to the number, and then we are patching this field to the credit score. The question is here, why we are single the single quote. The point to mention the single quote is here. Basically, you can see here we are not using the single quote here. Since this name contains the spaces, that's why to mention it like a one single field, we are using as a single quote. So to mention that to patch the next field, you need to close with a colon, which shows I have mapped this field. Now we are going to patch the next field. And the next field, of course, we have the checkbox. And this field value, we want to map this with the text filer, which is basically a, the yes and no, which is Boolean field. And we are using it here, the checkboxes. And in the same manner for this field, which is basically the profile for the link, for the hyperlink, we are using the text field, and we are just mapping the same to the LinkedIn field, which is basically a SharePoint list field. So in the same manner, we are doing the same stuff for the currency field, just converting the text field into the number and then mapping it with the revenue, which is basically a currency field inside the SharePoint field. You can see here. And then we are going to talk about the image. So here, as I have already talked about this one, that we are using the controller, this controller here, media profiler. And from this controller, we are saying whatever the media profiler, just dot image means use this image, okay, and map it to the profile, which is basically image. Now the second, the complex thing is basically a lookup field, which in our here, we can see here the branch. The branch itself is basically a lookup field, which is basically referring to another list. So you can see here, this is a lookup field, which is referring to the another branch. And to patch this one, how you can do this, we have talked about the number, we have talked about yes and no, how to achieve this one. Either you can toggle, either you can use a condition, and for the hyperlink, you can directly paste it, and either you can map it from the field. For the currency, you can directly paste it, hard coded, or you can choose it from the text field. But here you need to mention, need to convert into the value for the numbers. Okay, so moving forward in the image, either you can directly use the card, or you can use the media, or for example, if you have pen and control in your canvas app, then you can use the pen control option, and then you can select this one. And if you have an option in your canvas app to capture the, if you have a camera inside in your canvas app, then you can use this one. So we have mentioned how to from this one to this one. So for the image we have already talked about, and for the lookup, which is basically a next complex one, which is basically how you can achieve this one. Either this is the lookup field name inside the SharePoint, and you can mention it one by one, or what you can do is basically you can directly look this one. For example, value the field name and look up the value from this location, or you can use a combo box dot selected, whatever you have select inside a combo box, like the same way. But now I'm using this one, like in the CB branch, which is basically a combo box or the branch field, which is basically mapping to this one, and I am mapping this lookup field to this one. So now the last complex, field, is basically manage metadata. You can see here is in the terms. For example, if you go to this field, you can see the type of this field is basically manage metadata. Manage metadata. So for this manage metadata, you can see here, if we talk about here, how you can achieve this one. this will be the same. Are you going to create or the update? And in the same manner, there are 5 different fields which you have to mention. One of them, which one is important? The important is one for the label and the term GUID. The GUID is the important one, which is a mandatory one in any case, you know. So here, what I have done, I'm using the same connector. For example, what here you can see I have created under the taxonomy my own site level term group under the taxonomy. So I have to connect my canvas app with that one. So I'm using the connector. And then how to find these fields in the same way. Here and go to the data, edit, and you can see here there are label, path, term grid, and value. Okay. So because I have mapped this field with this data types, with this data type of this field of the list. So that's why it's fetching all the details, the metadata. The meta means the properties of that column field. And how we are patching this one, we are gonna patch this one using the term GUID, the WSID, the label, path, and value. And from where it is coming, it's coming from the combo box term field. Whatever I have selected, dot the term GUID. This will be automatically, it will, when you click on the selected, if you press this dot, it will show you all the other properties of it. So you need to map with that active one. So click here, this one is the terms, and from where it is coming, this one is coming from the combo box. Okay, so this patch function, we have talked about the text field, column, lookup, metadata, and all that stuff. You know, we have talked about how to patch them. But now we are going to talk about how many fields are unsupported. As we have already talked about, the calculated field is unsupported. We can't patch them. In the same manner, we can't patch the external data column and the location itself, as I have already talked about here. This SharePoint list has, you know, this field is basically a calculated field. Okay. And this field is basically is allocation field. This one. So we can't patch them. So that's why we are not mentioning it here. So in the patch function, we have patched them inside this list for the creation. These are the first one is basically these are the text. This one is a SharePoint field, and this one is coming from the canvas fields. So I have patched them. How? By using the comma separator. The patch function is, you know, is closing here, and now I'm notifying here. So let's go, let's patch them one by one. How we are going to patch the value, for example, let's see, we have 3 values inside the SharePoint list, and I want to show them. For now, I'm using the gallery itself. You can see here, just to show whatever the data inside this list. How I'm fetching, I said, I will show you the source of this gallery. The source of this gallery is coming from the customer list itself. So let's run this app. Okay, now I'm going to patch them one by one. For example, I'm going to patch this one. I'm entering the title, whatever the title is. Okay. Which this data is coming from this one. For example, level 1, this level 2. The whatever the detail I want to enter, the notes, this and that. This is showing the user. Okay, member 1. And for example, this is a soft. So I'm gonna label it the 8, and the text filer is no. For example, the like link, and this is the revenue. And I can choose the picture. For example, let's choose this picture this time. This one. And this one is basically, you know, is a lookup field. Basically, it's coming from this one, from the list itself. See, I've selected. Now I'm gonna choose the patch. See here we have patch 1 and patch 2. So I said here the patch 1 and the GUID. Why it's showing me the patched value and this GUID? This is, looking something unprofessional. So how we can do this? We can go here. We need to select here. Go click on the edit. I said show me the label, but for the second field, please don't show me like this. Show me like in the proper way, the path itself. So now let's run this one. If I run, it will show me patch 1 term is coming from this path. So this one is somehow good. So now we are going to patch this. So this one is hiding. Okay, so now I'm gonna patch this one. Once I click here, patch, it will show me the data here with this label, with this title, whatever the title is. Okay. And it will insert the data inside this one. For example, if I click on this patch, so you can see here this data is coming from the list itself. So we have inserted the data inside the list. So how I can show you here, we have only 3 records, but here once I patched, I transfer the data into the customer list and I'm fetching the detail. I'm refreshing this gallery. So it's fetching the same details. Okay. So here I have to refresh. We can see here there is another record with the title IT, whatever we have selected. This is the member one, this is soft, and this is the rating, this is the link, and this time we selected it's not this one. This guy is not a text filer. You can see here, and the value, and this column is not spotted. This is the image and the brand, the lookup field and the term that we selected. And this one is basically a calculator field. As we have already talked about, we can't patch the calculator field because the calculator field is somehow, for in our case, it depending on the revenue. If the revenue is less than 1,000, then we are saying within the budget. And if it's more than, then it will say over the budget. So how to see, we have talked about how to patch these fields, okay, from the Canvas app itself. So you guys have seen, and if I have implemented the error handling and it. So in our next class, we will talk about how to create the collection with these users, okay, and how to how to create how to press on this button, how to create a new data, how to empty this one, and how to select this one, the selected record, populate them, to update them, okay, and how to refresh this data, and how to patch multiple records. And we will give it a proper layout in our next upcoming session. And we will also talk about the container itself. So thanks guys. I will end this session here. So
Yeah,
I would
excellent, excellent, Zishan. Wonderful. You gave very explained everything in very, very
can you
good
please stop
detail. So it's
can you
awesome.
please
So
stop the
yeah,
recording?
I'm going to
Okay.
stop the recording and